What have people been missing so much, Ed?
Well, I think expecting a recession was perfectly logical. It kind of made sense. The Federal Reserve increased the federal funds rate by 525 basis points, basically from zero, over a very short period of time from March of 2022 to basically the summer of 2023. It would make sense that that kind of dramatic tightening of monetary policy, restriction of monetary policy would cause a recession. Uh, Along the way, I concluded that maybe the Fed wasn't just tightening, but it was actually normalizing. It was bringing interest rates back up to levels that the economy had shown its ability to deal with before the great financial crisis through the great virus crisis. That was what I call the great abnormal period of ultra easy monetary policy. There's no point in debating whether that made sense or not, but the reality is that period's behind us. We're no longer in an abnormally low interest rate environment, and the economy has proven itself to be perfectly resilient in the face of the level of interest rates we have. And I think a lot of that resilience obviously has to do with the consumer. The consumer is a big part of the story. And over the past couple of years, economists have been saying that that's not going to last, that consumers had piled up a bunch of excess saving. I think there's a Federal Reserve uh, estimate that $2 trillion was the peak excess savings. And now in March of this year, the excess savings is down to zero. So I guess any day now, we should see a pile of economic indicators suggesting that the consumer has got to retrench because they've got to save some more. But I think what that misses is the demography of our economy. We've seen the baby boomers starting to retire, and they're sitting on $76 trillion. So on one side, you have 2 trillion of excess savings that's gone to zero. On the other side, you've got a bunch of baby boomers that are retiring. Retirement is a dramatic change in one lifestyle. You're not saving out of earned income anymore. If you're lucky enough, you've saved enough so that you can live on interest and dividend income. And if you're not, then you start to go into the nest egg here. And the baby boomers are spending, and they're spending on a lot of services. And guess what? Those are the areas where employment's been very strong. So it's kind of been feeding on itself. But there's lots of other explanations for why the recession didn't happen. But I think that's the most important one.
So taking a step back, there's a lot to unpack there. I want to start with
Sure.
the idea of where Fed rates are now and that they've been normalized. Are rates restrictive, as Federal Reserve Chair Jay Powell says, as we've heard from every of the 1,500 Fed speakers we've had
Yeah.
over the past couple of days?
Well, the Fed is not restrictive if you look at the pace of economic growth, if you look at the stock market being at an all-time high here, all-time high around the world. Fed matters a great deal, not only to our financial markets, but to overseas financial markets. The dollar has been strong, so I guess that's somewhat restrictive, but it hasn't been so strong as to really restrict anybody's exports from the United States. So if you look at the inflation rate, it has come down, and I guess you can say that the inflation that the federal funds rate is restrictive enough to bring inflation down. But look, I think what we've learned over the past couple of years is inflation is a very complex process. And a lot of what we've experienced in the past couple of years has had to do with, guess what, the pandemic. And that has to be factored into people's thinking on how the economy is performing. And it's clear, I think we all know that there were supply chain disruptions that have been ameliorated. And as a result, that's helped to bring inflation down. But a lot of economists had this notion that the only way to bring inflation down is with a recession. And so they thought the Federal Reserve would have to raise interest rates until we got a financial crisis that led to a credit crunch that led to a recession. And so far, that hasn't happened. And yet inflation's come down. I think one of the things that economists missed is China. We didn't have to have a recession because China has had a significant recession, particularly in their property market. And as a result, they've been trying to stimulate their economy by, guess what, exporting more, particularly electric vehicles and other kind of state-of-the-art green technologies. And the prices they're charging have actually been deflating. So they've been exporting deflation on the good side to the United States. And meanwhile, we're just waiting for the service inflation rate to come down, particularly shelter. And by every indication, it should continue to come down. So I think when you put all those things together, you come to the conclusion that, well, interest rates are neutral. They're kind of where they should be.